Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was this global phenomenon, and I barely remember the rules, but there was one thing where you could like poll the audience, and apparently Russia was the only country where they would lie. Like when you polled the audience, you couldn't trust them at all.
It's like, fuck you.
It's like C. It's always C.
It's like, why should he get any extra bread this week? Screw him.
Communists are like, we all try for answer same.
Oh my god.
Oh, man.
It's amazing.
I just love that was just a collective thing that they all just agreed. Like, we're all lying, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're all...
They're just trolls. That's so funny.
That's fun.
Have you guys seen the Satanist documentary?
Which one?
It's called like I Am Satan ? Or something like that.
Oh, is that the one on Netflix?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
I Am Satan?
Yeah. Or no,
No,
Hail
Satan.
Hail
Okay,
Satan
I've seen it. I haven't watched it. Is that
I haven't
what it's
seen
about?
it.
Is it like a real...
It's about the Church of
the Church of Satan.
Satanic whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, the Church of Satan, which is basically just a troll
Yeah.
for like hyper Christian organizations.
Yeah.
And so, but the guy who like runs it has this weird freaky eye, and he goes by like Lucian, like Evil Kiss or some bullshit. Like he just
Lucian Evil Kiss.
so hard on himself. Like, bro, just get the statue put up. Why do you have to fucking wear a mask with horns on it?
You can just do yourself. You just do you.
Yeah.
Just do you, bro. Yeah. That's what Satan would want.
It's true. If we're to follow the true principles of the Church of Satan, it's really about ultimate freedom. I think that they kind of follow a Miltonian version of Satan, which is just like what Satan wants is for humans to be just individually in charge of their own free will in all things, not conforming to society or any religious pressures.
But I think that is true, and that is well articulated. But I think the point of the whole documentary is to show that like they don't even believe that. Like, like they just only care that like if you're gonna say Christianity can be here, then
they get it too.
Then like anyone can be here, and to prove that, we're gonna put Satan here.
Yeah.
And then like it's just to troll Christians. Like they don't even think that Satan's real or that like the idea of freedom is necessary. They're just literally like, we just don't want Christian shit being up because it seems like kind of shifted to one group specifically, and that seems unfair.
It is somebody who is a Christian. That's fair. Like it should. Everybody should get a fair seat at the table, right? Yeah. That should be. Like I always found that weird that it's like. Well, especially like Christians who are supporting Bill 21 in Quebec. It's like you realize they're coming from Bill 21's the one that like people you can't be in the civil service and wear specifically religious symbols.
Okay.
Right.
But what Quebec really means is the
No
religious
hijabs.
Symbols of brown people. Like we just like that's kind of what it's about. We don't like Muslims or brown people. Yeah. But like, and what's weird is you'll get some Western Canadian Christians will be like, "That's a good idea," because they also don't like Muslims or brown people. But it's just like, well, if we're talking about this from a religious freedom perspective, then they're coming for us next, right? Like that's like y'all shouldn't, like with that. If we want to make room for us, then we got to make room for everybody else.
1939.
Yeah, exactly. First, they came for the Jew. Like we've been here before. We can all memorize this poem. Like, geez.
It's like I only memorized the first part.
First it came for the Jews. We were all cool with that, right? That's totally getting clipped. Yeah. It's totally getting clipped. And if I ever run for public office, like, first they came for the Jews, and that was cool, right?
Why is he talking in that voice?
That's his impression of a hip anti-Semite.
Well, that was the weird thing right around like mid like 2 years before Trump got in. It was just like Richard Spencer. Like there was so many articles about like he's got an undercut and wears a tie. Isn't he interesting for a racist? And it's like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the archetype that we've created. It's like, yeah, they look like all different types of people.
Yeah. He kind of looked like Fortin when he started comedy. Not that you're a white supremacist, but like you kind of had that look. Like if you had been like, and I just got this tattoo, we would have been like, yeah, that's predictable.
Well, that's so funny.
Start doing a lot of shows with, oh man, I don't even want to say his name. The guy that was here for a while and is in Toronto now and trolls people on Facebook.
Oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't know which name to say because I don't know which one is real, but
Yeah, all of them. They're all real. Identity is a perception, Dan. That's what you.
Nice.
He's one of those guys.
oh man,
Have you watched Don't Fuck with Cats on
Yeah.
that
Netflix?
one was awesome.
I did
Yeah, it was
accident.
crazy. I watched it.
it was amazing.
Last night, I think, and was like,
Yeah.
it's
It
fucking
was
chilling.
brilliant.
Yeah.
I was kind of saddened that those two internet weirdos didn't hook up at the end. That was hoping for.
It showed them meeting up at a coffee shop one time.
Yeah.
And then like he was probably like, no fat chicks. And she,
I was like, no, I can do better. But then also, like, he didn't give his real name. Like,
Yeah.
he was weird because he appeared on camera. Like, we
Yeah.
saw him, we saw his face, but he gave a fake name.
but then the identity as a perception thing, like all of this whole network of like,
I can't believe what a great job those nerds did.
oh,
They
I
did
know,
amazing.
it's pretty well. I was watching it with my girlfriend. And we're like, who has this kind of time?
I know.
Yeah, man. My girlfriend's like, my grandparents live right near there. I was like, who has this much time to be like stock? I mean,
Like, but thank God there are some people with
I-
absolutely bizarre interests that just do stuff that, like, I was listening to a true crime documentary, and the reason why it was sort of like they were looking for a woman who had been she was a girl then, pulled in the 60s scoop of indigenous people from Saskatchewan, and she had purportedly been adopted by a family in New Jersey, which was miles and miles of fucked up that they adopted these kids out all over North America, but whatever. But one of the reasons that they found her was because like there
It's
was
also
this,
going to get sound clips.
Yeah.
It's super fucked up to think that these kids all over North America, but whatever.
that's a whole other episode. But then the only reason that they found this woman was because like there's a website that is just pictures of gravestones. So there's like weird old people, like my great uncle would probably be one of them were he still living, that like they just visit cemeteries, take pictures of the gravestones, like and like wash them or brush them up to make sure that you can read them real well, and then like just put them online. So somebody was just searching this database of like that's the name, right? And they that and the years were right, and that was basically the foothold they needed to actually find this woman, so she could so her family could find her, and
right.
You know, like. She had died in like the 70s, like her family didn't know if she was alive, she were dead, like this is, but all of that because like we would consider that a weird person and a weird thing to do with your time, but like
Take pictures of tombstones and put them online.
yeah.
Depending how that person looked, you might call the police.
Yeah.
Honestly, like you'd be like, what are you taking pictures
Why are
of,
you
man?
doing this? Like, is this a weird? If it looked like that Church of Satan guy with the weird eye, you'd be like, no, not cool, man.
Yeah.
Like you.
If you
Why do you always come at night?
It seems like it was easier to take the picture during the day, man. But it's probably like a little old person that knows how to use like that website and like the Facebooks.
Yeah.
To see the pictures of the grandkids.
Oh man.
Yeah, we need people that have strange interests to do the weird things that we don't know about.
Exactly.
I was thinking about that. Do you remember the show Dirty Jobs
Okay, yeah.
with Mike Rowe?
Yeah.
That always fascinated me, not because I liked Mike Rowe or anything. I was just like, who the fuck? How many people are working these jobs? Like, what are these weird jobs that I've never even thought of? With like, you have to just be like a pig like chute maintenance guy at the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
You have to maintain all the pig chutes at the slaughterhouse when the pig gets stuck in there. Clean the blood out at the end of the day. Like you have this job.
Just an honest day's work.
Hopefully that's a union gig. Like hopefully that's like a decently paid. I know.
Thousands and thousands.
How did you get into this? Like, it's
who the fuck are you?
Like, and it's weird as comedians because we're always like, how did you get that gig? Like, who books that? Who books the pig shoot? Dude,
I've been trying this bit about that where it's like, everyone when you're a kid tells you that old saying where it's like, it's not what you know, it's who you know, but they don't tell you that means like, yeah, it's who you know who's going to give you that shitty union job at the carpenters union, like so you can work out in the cold with everybody else for 30 years. Yeah. It's not like who you know in the music biz who's going to get your mixtape out.
No. Like, if you're Billie Eilish and your parents already work in the music industry, then it's a much shorter line from zero to fame. Not to diss Billie Eilish, like she's a talented person, but like that's a shorter line.
You take the lot that you're given, and she was given a lot.
Some of us get to start on second. It's fine. Like no one's begrudging you. Just don't act like you were like sitting on the bench when you started out. Like that's not the case.
I love that Drake song.
Started from the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
I love that in the video, he gets promoted at Shoppers Drug Mart. That's pretty funny. Is that real? Yeah. In the video.
Living the dream.
Yeah, totally. In the video, it's like he's working at Shoppers Drug Mart with E40 and like gets a promotion, and he and his boys go out to party because he got promoted at Shoppers Drug Mart.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Are you guys boxing guys at all?
No, but I've seen all the memes about what happened.
The Fury Wilder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch it much. I mean, I didn't see the actual fight, but I've seen highlights,
Yeah. Today, Deontay Wilder came out and said that part of the reason his legs were shot is his costume was too heavy that he wore from dressing room to ring is a 40-pound. It's this insane. I don't know why.
Like a samurai thing that he was wearing.
Sort of, but like.
Did he wear it for like?
Think about that, but also Batman. Like.
Whoa!
Wow, that's a lot for a boxing match.
Yeah, he said he didn't get a chance to try it on until right before the fight. Swear to God. And that he said by round 3, like once he got into the ring, he realized his legs. He was feeling different, and by round 3. He's like, my legs were gone. But he honest to God, blamed the costume that he wore to the ring, which just, you think like the most alpha-ist of the males.
Yeah.
And it's like,
damn.
Well,
one, it's weird. Like, I want to, first thing I want to say is, like, there's probably one person in this room who's worked out with a weighted vest before.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's you.
One of the two of us.
So that is a thing. Like,
I was just gonna say, if there's one video of him working out with a weighted vest, then fuck that excuse.
Well, but like, why are you wearing like 40 pounds for that long walk at all? Like this is the night.
That's a dumb decision.
This is the night to leave the weighted vest at home. You've been doing the weighted vest to get,
Yeah.
Well, and it's what I found a little bit strange is like it seemed like last fight was a draw, right?
Yeah.
So, and some people said that they would have given it to Fury, and Fury's a better boxer.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not necessarily like everything that I'd heard about Wilder is that he has a really hard right hand, and if he catches with his right hand, at any
his
time,
right hand is insane.
It could be lights out, right?
Yeah, I've seen some highlights where he wants a body on his record.
Yeah.
So he's mad that his towel or that his corner threw in the towel because he's like, if I say that I would kill in the ring, I need to live that too, and I would be killed in the ring. It's like, dude,
wow,
No.
Back it down. Like, let's like, you've got kids, I'm sure. Like,
Yeah.
you know. But the other thing that I heard was that, like, the real reason he didn't have his legs is because he ruptured his eardrum or something like that on that punch. Like, and messed up his equilibrium.
Dude, I wrote on Facebook that boxing commentators love getting a chance to say equilibrium on the air. The number of times I heard it on the broad, hey, that might be his equilibrium. It's like the rest of their existence is like fucking smashed him.
But it's
dude.
weird how, like, okay, so even Conor McGregor's last fight that he won in like 13 seconds or whatever it was, however many seconds it was, like, you can see he does that little short shoulder punch and it catches the guy right in the tip of the nose.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that what happened to him happened to the rest of us is like, your eyes start watering and you can't see.
You can't,
And
you
then,
got a shattered nose.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like, it doesn't even have to be
you
that hard to
sneeze.
just make your eyes start
That's
watering
true.
and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa. And then, like, McGregor is a very good fighter. And
Yeah.
they got him with a couple of lefts and it's over. But it started with just this dumb, like, ow.
I know, hey.
I know.
I think it did, like, break his nose pretty
Oh,
decently.
really? Okay,
yeah.
But
still, I think it broke his orbital bone or something.
oh my
Good Lord. I remember I boxed very briefly when I was like 14, and there was no other 14-year-olds for you to box. So they're like, here, spar with this 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And he just caught me one, like, straight up directly, like, in my nose. And I was just like, oh, what was that? And then
no fun.
What was that?
later, he caught me with one, like, right under where your chest is, like right in your diaphragm.
Oh.
And it was just like, oh, I feel like I'm going to puke, and also I feel like I can't intake air right now. Like, what is happening to my body?
Which one do you want, God?
Yeah. And like, what's weird is that like those are not the most painful places to get hit really hard. Like if you get hit really, your liver, your kidney, that can just like shut down all bodily function.
Oh man, it's insane. I think it's insane when you see a fight end with a body shot.
Oh yeah.
Or especially in boxing where the guy just like takes a knee and is just like, I can't.
Yeah. Your body just shuts down. You're just like, I can't. No, I'm done. I can't.
Watching their ankles is like the wildest thing, because it literally just like they just wobble. Like it's just like, oh, these are jello now.
Yeah.
Like, how?
Yeah.
How did you get hit so hard? You ever seen someone get hit like they call it the button, like right on the button,
on the jaw, where it just shuts them down.
Yeah, literally like the corner of your jaw, and it's just like, and the dude just like, boom, like
Well, on the ground doing this.
Yeah.
The like telltale sign of when you fall on your back and you go.
yeah, your arm. Yeah, that's just scary. There comes a point where it's scary. Like even if you're the guy who did it, you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna catch a charge.
Is this rigor mortis?
Like
How fast does it happen?
I didn't mean to do that. You know. Like,
He shit his pants.
well,
that's got to be the scariest part of like being a person who goes out and gets into fights. Is like you can one punch a person to death.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're a murderer, but you were just like
good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. The better you are at fighting, the more dangerous it becomes.
Yeah, the like street fighting is so fascinating to me because it's like, first of all, people forget that people that get in street fights or like start acting big at the bar, they forget that it's still like an athletic contest.
Yeah.
And like physics still work. So it's just like, you know, I remember like, so like, do you know the comedian Leland Clausen?
Yeah.
Like you guys work with him. So but like people have been like, I would put him up against almost anybody in a fight because he's like,
His huge arms.
Yeah, he's 6'4". His arms are 100 yards long, and he's super athletic. Like he's 45 years old. He can still dunk, like nice dunks.
Really?
Like
That's cool. That makes a person so much cooler.
I know. Like he can still like two-hand, like do a variety of dunks at his age. But also, I'm just like, physics is still a thing. Like 9 times out of 10 in a fight, like the person with the longest arms is winning, and like the person who is in the best shape is winning. The person like you can be as mad as you want, man. Like it's not like I realize that you're really upset about the I realize you're really upset about the words that were just said here, but like you are 5'7" and with short arms, and he's gonna thrash you if you're not trained. Now, if it's a trained trained person who like knows what they're doing, then it's over. Like the
you-
trained person beats
You
the
can
untrained
get
person.
inside and
Yeah.
cause some real
The
damage.
trained person beats the untrained person, but if it's just two like jokers getting going at it, then it's like the one with the longer arms is gonna win. Like this is, I don't know why we can just go. We don't have to videotape this.
We don't have to videotape this.
On-screen world star. Let's just get a measuring tape, figure out who's got the longer arms, and we'll give them the belt.
Yeah, the belt, and then you can go home without getting your head kicked in. Like, isn't that going to be a better option? You know, like you're not going to have to explain anything at work. Yeah, we'll just go get some donair poutines. No one has to explain anything at work on Monday.
Yeah.
It's like, why is your ear not attached to your body anymore? Well,
Yeah.
Rugby?
Yeah.
I had too many shots of courage on Friday night.
I just took it pretty easy this weekend. Is your ear falling off your head? You should get that looked at.
Yeah, did you
I didn't think it should.
Nah.
Was that a thing with your kids? What did your kids do?
I was pretty hungover on Saturday, and then Sunday I just got to get the lawn done, so just didn't have time to go. I don't think it's that big a deal. It's like,
I kind of like it.
I think it makes the wife's fine with it.
That's so funny. The wife is fine with it. Happy wife, happy life, baby.
Yeah.
Do you believe in that philosophy, Dan Taylor?
Well, I mean, probably. I guess, like if that's
Like it sort of makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
but like in the sense that like if you're in a partnership with another human being, like you can't have that person be miserable and expect to be like
it's like
you know,
unhappy life, happy life.
you know,
like
just,
what?
It's just like, I mean, in some ways, like people act like there is something about marriage that's mysterious, but then on the other side, it's just a business relationship like any other relationship, right? And like if you regularly forgot the microphones or something, like every time you were going to be recording, you'd start to get pissed off, and that would ruin the podcast for both of you, right? Like so. Yeah. So like at some point, it's just the exact same thing. I mean,
I feel like when some dudes say that though, there's like this weird like undertone of like you have to sacrifice your own happiness for your wife's happiness when it comes down to it.
And that's when it just starts to get super unhealthy. You know? Like
that's just a weird relationship.
Yeah, you shouldn't like. There's lots of unhealthy marriages that it's just like you guys need some help. But the other thing is people.
You guys need some help.
Well, I've been working on a bit where I've been thinking about this, just because it's just like, because I do think, and especially as I have a teenager that's getting older, right, and they're going to make their own choices about whatever they're going to do, but also it's just like, how do you decide who you're going to have sex with, right? Because like, I just think it's like, because when I was younger, it was just like I had a criteria where it was just like, you're willing to have sex with me? And that was it. That was the only thing that I was concerned about.
You're here. Also.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, so, like, but that's not the best way to make a decision like that. You know, like, so I've been trying to start this thing. Like, you should really only be involved with someone with whom you would start a small business. Right? Like if you're, you know, like it's one thing to be like it's 2 a.m. and this person's, you know, really hot and maybe they look kind of like Ian Hannah-Mansing or whatever you're into. And Ian Hannah-Mansing, the CBC News journalist. If I was going to be gay, it would be for Ian Hannah-Mansing.
My granny had a crush on him for years.
He's a ridiculously handsome man.
She's the Ian handsome man thing.
Yeah, exactly. Ian Hannah-Mansing is great. But yeah, like it's one thing to be like, this person's hot and available, but it's another thing, like, you know, if I was sick, would they still show up to the food truck? You know? And if they wouldn't, then that's maybe not the person that you should be involved with. Yeah. It's like every relationship isn't so much, especially if you're looking for a relationship to be long term. It is sort of like a small business as much as it is everything else. And your small business is your life, right?
Yeah. You as a human being and your life.
Yeah.
Is a small
here's a guy trying to get tax breaks over here. It's a small business as well as a marriage, in fact.
Well, marriage already is actually with taxes.
Yeah, you already and if you play your cards right, it's already a decent tax break. Like, you know, but...
Yeah. Plus, you know, you only got to pay for one bed now.
Yep.
Everything that used to you pay for two of them, now you're just paying for one of them.
What you got to be really clear on is like automatically debts become shared debts.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I've always been worried about.
Yeah, like, so, which is a real thing. If it's just like, I got an arts degree and then another arts degree. It's just like, oh, so you're like 80 grand in the hole?
Yeah. So you're just sitting there doing the math, just like, Jesus.
Yeah, and it's like, so we're 80 grand in the hole?
Yeah,
like,
it's like,
I mean,
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I know one person that didn't get married to another person specifically. It wasn't that she was not in debt. He was just like, you don't even have a plan. Like, he was he's like, I'm not coming into this and making your plan and making you stick to it. Like, he's like, you need to,
you gotta do that.
Get your shit under control. You know, like,
I have ran into that, and this feels like it's going to sound sexist, but it's just my experience. I've ran into a lot of girls whose plan is just to be a mom and have a husband who makes enough money to deal with like their
debt and shit.
And just whatever their life is.
Yeah.
Like just them, buying groceries and them,
like they don't have I'm gonna go work at the or like.
But that's the thing. Is like, once the kids grow up, then I'll get a job at the Reitman's.
Really?
Whoa, really? Reitman's.
We're doing a lot of faith that Reitman's still existing. Like all our moms are gonna die eventually. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just grow. It seems like it's a small town Alberta thing. The girls are just like, well, I'm gonna be a mom.
Okay.
Like that's their aspiration.
Which is weird because it's like even in the boom, it was like kind of a 2-income place. Like that's the like it's weird to.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the people that I grew up with weren't really like it was 2-income, but like mom just had a part-time job.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean most of the people in my neighborhood, kind of.
You grew up north side though, right?
No, south.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, that was the thing. It was like everyone's dad was like a lawyer or like a doctor or like a mechanical engineer or some shit like that.
Yeah, well, that's the weird thing about Edmonton too. Like, did you grow up in Edmonton?
Yeah,
yeah,
like, on the south side as well.
It's like blue collar money here.
Yeah,
you know? Like it's because it's not like white collar money. Like everybody's a professional, like a doctor or
and
professor.
Not a lot of bankers.
Yeah. It's like, but it's just like, I'm a plumber and I make 6 figures, easy. You know.
It's just crazy how much money like just these guys, and you're like, that truck cost. I remember when I found out how much big trucks cost because I was a car guy. I never looked into trucks, but like when I was 14 I started looking at cars and I knew that Audis were like 50-60 grand for like an S4, the twin turbo 6-cylinder all-wheel drive, leather interior, all that. Then I find out King Ranch Dually's like 123 grand. I'm like, you can buy a Lamborghini Gallardo for that much.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
I didn't know they were that expensive.
Yeah, that's the Alberta status symbol. Like a Denali is like pushing 90. You know, like if you get a 2500 or a full, like it's...
The F350 Dually King Ranches, if you get them fully loaded, they push like $120.
Even like your F3, like F-150 Platinum, it's 60 easy. Like
man,
brand new truck, and especially the way they work them because you can get your base model for like 25, but it's got like an 8-track just to insult you.
Dude, my Ford Ranger is the craziest thing in the world. It's a 2011. It has an auxiliary input.
Yeah.
It has roll-down windows.
Right.
No air conditioning. Manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, and what the fuck else was weird about it? Did you put weight in
the back for winter, or
are
you just all over the place?
I'm still all over the place. Yeah, she's been good. What else is weird about it? Yeah, there's no roll. Oh, it doesn't have power locks. It's a 2011. No power locks. It does have an auxiliary cord.
Don't you have to get into the passenger side or something?
Well, yeah, it got broken into, so the the key got knocked out. They broke. I was so mad.
Were they trying to steal it, or were they trying?
I don't know. They stole my gym bag that was full of like dirty gym clothes. So like mostly I was mad about like the
fans are crazy.
Yeah, there's like a couple of there's like a college dorm room that are just sniffing your old gym clothes.
I hope not.
I don't know if it's McEwen or U of A, but it's one of the two.
One of the two.
It's definitely
It's like got them, guys.
Yeah.
Oh man, just chloroforming themselves.
We had to go in through the passenger door.
No, they were the ones who broke the driver's door.
Right.
So, but that's definitely a way to impress ladies. The next time you take a lady out, it's just like, hey, can I climb in your door first, and then you climb in behind me?
Yeah, we'll have to climb in and then unlock the driver's side from inside, like pull the handle. I always just pretend like I have to shuffle something around. I'm like, oh, I just gotta move. I just gotta get your the seatbelt sticks.
Bit of a dry spell. Why don't we just train to a neutral location
Yeah. So, but the annoying thing is the Ford Rangers are so easy to break into.
Right.
There literally is a hole that when you lift the handle up, there's a hole, and if you put something long in it and you push upwards, it flicks the lock upwards.
So you could like literally break in with a hanger if you wanted to.
No, hanger's not sturdy enough.
Oh, okay.
It needs to be like a long flathead screwdriver.
Oh,
but the
wow.
hole's
Just
big
like
enough. It's
the
like
blueprint to breaking Alex's truck this week on Scrambled YEGs.
There you go.
if you have a long screwdriver flathead with whatever,
Wow.
the head doesn't matter as long as
Yeah.
it's like long enough. You just go straight in and then up and back a little bit, and it just goes punk. And it like pops open.
That's
so
funny.
they had a flathead screwdriver and drilled it into my fucking lock and then knocked that out so that they could then put the screwdriver in to knock it up. And I was like, just lift the fucking handle, guys. You didn't have to knock my whole thing out, and I don't have auto locks, so I have to get in from the other side now. And the worst part is because they fucked the whole door up, and like they can't just put a new lock, like just a new piece in, because it won't sit in there. So I have to replace the whole door with a new lock, and then I have to get a new key. So I'd either have to have a key for the passenger side and the ignition and a key for the driver's side, or get all the other locks changed. So I'm like, this is like a $2,000 thing, because these
That's a
motherfuckers
very
stole my
complicated.
$100 gym shoes and some dirty ass shorts and a pair of wireless headphones.
There's a guy in my neighborhood who has, like, he just has a shit box of a car because it's just his beater, but he's got a sign in the window that it's just like, it's unlocked. Just because people would be smashing his window. He's like, it's such a pain in the
unlocked.
ass.
There's nothing in here.
Yeah, he's like, it's unlocked. If you want to take it, go ahead.
Oh
you know,
my
like,
God.
Just like, so people will like rummage around, but he just doesn't keep anything in it, and he keeps it unlocked because then they won't smash his window.
That's funny.
I feel like,
Compromise.
dude, if I didn't have so much like stupid garbage that I keep in my truck for safety reasons, because like I go on the road and I'm like, okay, well I need a warm jacket back there, and I have like a little shovel, and like I have booster cables. If I didn't need that stuff to be in my vehicle, I would totally just leave it unlocked. Yeah. If I had a trunk that I could like leave locked and then leave everything else unlocked, I would. But it's a fucking truck.
Yeah.
So
you can get a cat. You can get a like. Cover.
Yeah, I gotta get a tonneau cover. But even though it's like $700,
those are expensive.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Those
so
are super
stupid.
pricey. You can get them used, but even used, they're still pretty pricey.
Yeah.
But,
So now, and then of course the thing's unsellable, and my last payment comes off on my birthday in 2 weeks. So I'm very excited about that. But it's like I owe like $100 on this fucking thing. It's now worthless that I have to get in from the driver's side. That like to put a tonneau cover on would be totally worthless. It fishtails all the time in winter, and it's like a fine purchase because it hasn't broken down and it's got like over 200,000 kilometers and it's great. But it's a hugely inconvenient vehicle.
this episode brought to you by Truck Wreck.
Yeah. I've opened up a wound.
Well, I have an 011 truck as well, but because we were just doing some renos, and like my wife went through this phase, and this is another happy wife, happy life thing where you have to like put your foot down every once in a while. Because like we were doing our own renos, which is fine, but like we didn't have a truck at the time, so like every time we did demo, it's just a pain in the ass. I gotta find somebody else's truck, or I gotta rent it. And I was just like, look, if we're gonna do this seriously for more rooms, like I need to get a truck. Because she was just like, well. She was like, but it can't be that hard to just borrow a truck every day. And I'm like, I have to borrow the truck every time.
Yeah.
You don't. Sure, it's easy for you. You don't have to do that. You have to get mad at the pile of lumber in the back that hasn't gone anywhere in 2 weeks and be mad at me. I'm the one that has to figure out how to get rid of it. So we're buying a damn truck.
We're buying a truck.
But yeah, I managed to get one on. I got like a 2011 Silverado hybrid.
Ooh.
Yeah, very Albertan.
How many K on it?
It's a lot, like 280. Nice. But
Ooh.
yeah, but I mean, it's cheap and it's paid for. But the weird thing about the hybrid is that like I think it was a government truck, so I think that they already replaced the battery.
Oh, nice.
Because like basically the thing about the battery is basically the thing with a hybrid is like after generally around 200,000 kilometers, the battery can go at any time. And then, like it can, like it's basically already outlived its life. So it's kind of like it's the big problem with hybrids is that the batteries
just unexpectedly at a certain
it'll just
point.
shut down, and then and it's not like you can just drive the gas engine then without the battery. It just doesn't work. So you have to get the battery replaced, and that's about $2,700. So, but I think that's already been done. So,
yeah. Well, if it was a government vehicle, they basically just run everything at like the dates for it. They would come in. We had like fleet vehicles come into Lubex all the time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And basically you'd be like, yeah, your maintenance guide says 54,000 kilometers. This service needs to be done. You're at 55,000, and they just give you their fleet card. They're like, fucking give her.
Probably.
Fucking give her. That is probably what they say.
So
they would just hand it to you. Like, yeah.
But like if you've got cash and you know anything about cars, auction is a really great way to go about it.
Oh,
you know? Like it's because like don't do it if you don't know anything about cars because you really got to go over them with a fine tooth comb and you know because you could be buying a piece of shit. But like my dad was a mechanic for years, he knows a bunch of stuff, so he looked over it with me and all that kind of stuff. And then
how long do they give you to go over it? How does auction off a car work? Like you just sit in the audience like a jewelry auction and hold up signs?
Well, no. For cars, basically they're out there, and as soon as they publish their thing, which is generally that week, you can go look at it. You know, like so say the auction is on like a Wednesday, you can go and look at them on a like Tuesday, or you have all day. You can you
can just open up the hood and like
you can pop the hood, you can climb underneath it. You know, and they're not trying to hide like because the auctioneer doesn't give a shit, right?
Yeah, there's nothing in it for them.
They don't, you know, like if they sell it, great, but if they don't, they're not going to lie about it. So yeah, so that's the way to. But yeah, that's the way to go.
Sometimes
I'm guessing we've started.
Let's see how far in we are. Yeah, we're about 42 or so in.
How long does it normally go?
Like an hour-ish. Yeah. It's hard to break in and get people to care. Though, as far as podcasting, like we've been trying.
What are your? Do you mind? Like
thousands.
Okay, that's not bad.
No, like dozens.
Okay. Yeah. It's tough, and it's so saturated now that there's like CBC is starting to do true crime podcasts.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that.
So. You know, so there's just professionals that used to be doing radio, and then people put money into it. So it is hard if you're just like, what's the room for it? You know, and, and I think that there's way fewer of these, or people are listening to fewer and fewer of these than they used to, of just like three people shooting the shit. You know?
Yeah,
it's a, you know, like it's gonna sound retro at some point in time, but yeah, like there was a point where all podcasts were just three people shooting the shit.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. I mean, what do you guys normally listen to in terms of podcasts?
I don't really.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was saying, we were talking about that before you got there. I never really got into the habit of like finding the time to listen to them.
Well, if you don't have,
and I also used to work in radio for a long time, so I don't know if that factored into just like
animosity.
Not. No. But like
screw
the
these
younger
generation.
But nerds have no respect for terrestrial radio.
Why do they want to have a conversation where you don't stop every 7 minutes for an ad break?
That's not what I meant.
What is this? They have no censorship.
This meant I was listening to radio all day because I was at radio, so I didn't want to listen to others.
Okay,
I just
heard someone go, what's going on?
But like Alex talking about the Joe Rogan podcast being 3 hours, I just think
Lewis in the news one time today.
And I work at a desk all day, so I can't really I don't know if I'm doing work that requires my attention. So
my brother-in-law can listen to, basically he has headphones in all day, and I think there's a lot of office workers and that listen to podcasts all day long. I think that's one of the.
I guess it depends on what you're doing.
Because you think it's not, because what they're saying is that it's not just commuters; it's people who are sitting at desks that are like typing things. But
so I never found that rhythm for myself, and so I never actually really truly got into it.
Yeah, and if I'm listening to something, I like to listen to it. So I'm not like I can't. Like, I can do the dishes while listening to a podcast, or I can cook while listening to a podcast, or I can...
That's what Alex was saying,
I run, drive, cook, clean.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. I'll have a podcast on while I'm doing. But I can't, like, I can't read something and listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
You're, like, reading books with podcasts on in the background. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, which one are you listening to?
Video games and listen to a podcast if I did that, but... Yeah.
So even that, it's like any fun video game takes like some kind of like brain devotion. Yeah. It's like I'll put music on while I play video games. Yeah. But usually they have sound anyways. You need it for the video game.
Yeah, you need to be paying attention to what's happening in the video game. So. Yeah.
And which ones do you listen to?
Podcasts?
Yeah.
I listen to Joe Rogan and Bill Burr's and the Dead Baby Bear.
All of Joe Rogan? Okay.
No.
Does anyone listen to all of Joe Rogan?
I don't know. Because
that's a super big barrier for me. It's just
I don't think anyone does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was saying that too. Like, it's just it seems, and there's also a lot of people that like really like it, and that always makes me like question it a little bit.
Yeah, that are like, how could you not think that this is the most awesome podcast ever?
And you're like, it's pretty good. And they're like, pretty good.
Anyone who likes what Joe Rogan has to say, I don't care for. But Joe Rogan has the coolest guests of any podcast in the whole world. Huh. And he is a really good interviewer. Like, he's really good at asking questions that most people wouldn't ask. Just because he's like a dumb stoner comedian, idiot, fear factor guy. So, like, when someone says something, he has no problem being like, what? Didn't you eat bat shit? I swear I heard that on the news or something. Yeah. Like, he has no problem saying that to someone's face.
Well, and I think the other thing about...
What a weird example.
But I don't know, like, he just says whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Well, and he's also not afraid to be stupid and be like, I don't know anything about this. Please explain it to me, right? Yeah. And I think that there is an aspect of that. Like, I think Joe Rogan's at a point where he's not trying to prove to anybody how smart he is, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, but again, like, there are times when it's just like... Oh, it's the most influential thing. You know, it's that classic comedian thing, right? Where it's like, all the three free thinkers, we're geniuses. And it's like, okay, guys, let's all just relax a little bit.
That's the part that, like, puts me off a little bit.
Yeah, it's just like, whoa, dude, you need to get into your supplements. It's like, okay, I don't know if I can handle another supplement advertisement from Joe Rogan.
I get it. You like Alpha Brain.
Yeah, like, I guess that, like, yeah, sure, if you want to, like, have a non-science, like, and in some ways he's just like Goop for dudes, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's exactly what it is.
Gwyneth Paltrow to a certain degree, you know, that it's like, and fine, more power to him. Like, this is the weird thing about Joe Rogan too. The man is insanely wealthy. Like, he's gotten.
Oh, he must be.
Fully admit that he lucked into some really weird gigs. Like, because like
UFC, Fear Factor.
Well, it starts with News Radio. Ray Romano turned down that role that he got. You know,
really?
So back on News Radio back in the day, and then he got Fear Factor, which nobody. Like, he thought that this is going to be dumb and off the.
That's what I know too.
Yeah. And then it's been, like, it was on for a long time, and he got a shitload of money to do that. You know? So,
I bet. Fuck.
And then getting the UFC gig.
Oh, yeah. The UFC thing. Well, I mean, he did have, like, he genuinely has a black belt in Taekwondo and trained for a long time. So he genuinely knew what he was talking about.
How many professional sportscasters are comedians?
Yeah. I could just get into it at this point in time without having, you know, like, and get to do color. That's the other weird thing. He gets to do color and, like, hasn't had to fight anybody.
And is like...
Since that guy tried to fight him on Fear Factor. Did you guys ever see that clip?
I don't think I remember.
The guy that is this weird, like, guy, he gets him at, like, because Joe Rogan's doing his Joe Rogan thing. And he was just calling the guy out on some bullshit on Fear Factor. And this was like a Fear Factor, like, favorite guests. So this guy had been a dick on Fear Factor before, and then had come back and was now being a dick again. And the other thing was that he was super mean to his wife. That, like, and I think that Joe Rogan was just like, hey man, it's like, stop it, you know. And then
also like at the heart of it, Rogan is, before any of this, an experienced, like, dirty stand-up comedian. Like, he's done fucking bar gigs and dealt with hecklers, and like he's as fucking road gig as it gets. Like he's a fucking hardened road dog too.
Like, and that's, and once you've done some of that stuff, you're just not going to get shook. You know, although
so that attitude mixed with a martial arts background, plus he's yoked as hell and hugely famous.
Yeah, and high on Alpha Brain or whatever.
And marijuana.
And he's got one of those float tanks in his basement.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a float?
No, I haven't.
That?
No.
It's like $50. It's not that expensive.
Is it good?
You should totally give it a shot.
Dude.
It's worth doing at least once.
Yeah.
I want to do all. This was something that Rogan. This is like one of the Rogan things that I agree with, and is very broy. But I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. He literally on one episode, he's like, dude, I do everything. He's like, I have the money. Why wouldn't I? He's like, totally. I'll do stem cells. I do the cryo freezing. I do the float tanks. I do like ayahuasca retreats. He's like, I have the money to do all of it that makes me feel better and makes my body last as long as possible. Why would I not fucking do it?
Yeah, of course.
And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Totally.
I want to do it all.
Like I was watching, like I love Desus and Mero, and they had a thing about like Tom Steyer, the billionaire who's running for not Bloomberg, the other billionaire.
Yeah, right.
And they were like, I don't trust this guy. He's rich and he's got bad teeth. There's something to that it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, like why doesn't he just simple
got billions
operation?
of dollars and he's still got bad teeth? Like,
an afternoon, man.
I don't know if you trust your judgment on this thing. Like they can just knock you out.
People are nice to you because of the money.
Exactly. Like, you don't seem to think that this matters, but like if most people in the world had money, they'd be like, yeah, I'll have the veneers. I'll have the ones that glow. Can I get those?
I would like to look as handsome as possible for almost none of my money, please.
Yeah.
Then he doesn't even have that personal trainer body that like because like if you've seen a picture of the funniest to me are like pictures of Jeff Bezos now versus pictures of like Jeff Bezos when he started Amazon, because like he just looked like a computer geek then, and now he looks like Lex Luthor. You know,
it's like the P90X guy that's like, I'm 106 and I have abs.
Tony Horton. Except that Jeff Bezos had like Tony Horton has a like. I've got a genetic advantage and I work out 12 hours a day and eat nothing. You know, like that's kind of, whereas Jeff Bezos has that like, I'm a billionaire and have a lot of HGH and a personal trainer. That's my...
Yeah, man. Dude, I would love to be rich enough that like healthy eating was delicious.
Yeah. Personal chef? Yeah.
Oh. And just like be able to afford the food that tastes that good.
And if you're on HGH, you can just eat whatever you want.
Oh
anyway.
yeah,
like you could go back to drinking, mixing with pop. You
don't
have to go. You don't have to mix with soda anymore.
Spiced
like
rum
a loser.
And vanilla Coke.
Spiced rum, vanilla Coke.
Buddy,
make that a double of both.
Vodka and cream soda over here.
My deathbed last meal would be stuffed crust pizza with vanilla Coke and spiced rum. Just, let's go.
Let's go.
Serotonin me. Put me in a food coma. I'll wake up like already attached to the chair. Like, all right.
Yeah, last meal. That's always a funny. Like that's a real thing too in those states where they still
Isn't
have
that
the death
wild?
penalty. Although it's like, have you guys heard or like this is another documentary thing that's fun. Like they like the companies have stopped making the main thing in the lethal injection, like the main ingredient in the lethal injection stuff. Like,
yeah, because they didn't, but now instead,
so they're trying to like just get through them while they still have the stuff, which is
I've
fucking
heard
insane.
that instead some of them are just being like, well, fuck it, use something else.
Yeah,
you're just putting like rat poison and like whatever will work.
But this is the thing.
Yeah,
like,
I've heard that shit too.
And this is the weird thing, and this is one of those ones where they're asking doctors how to kill people, right?
Yeah.
And no offense, but doctors are probably, and I'm like, this is one of those ones where I'm like, I'm not in favor of the death penalty, but probably you should be talking to dudes who work at slaughterhouses. Like, they are the people who have invested their lives in killing things humanely, right? Like, there's probably these guys that are watching all of this pain, because, like, apparently it's like, guys have like taken hours to die in horrific pain with these drugs,
Yeah.
and there's probably a guy who works at a slaughterhouse being like, "But I could just go."
Yeah.
Bolt him.
Yeah, I can just
frontal cortex, buddy.
Yeah, I'm just like, I got an air compressor in the back of the truck. I don't know why you're letting them suffer like this. Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all ain't never seen No Country for Old Men?
we treat our cows way better than this. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. But
That would be an interesting day at work. They're like, hey, today that's your assignment. And you're like, oh, I got to do I have?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, but we're almost out of this stuff. And they're like, eh.
Well, and I saw a short story about, or I read a short story about, like, and I don't know if it was like, they acted like it was based on a true story, but it was like this guy who was a serial killer, but rather than being like a serial killer Dexter, he like got a job as a executioner. Like that was how he.
So he fixed it.
Yeah, he was fine. I'm good. I'm good. I'm just here. I just gotta pull through till Tuesday, Jim.
Yeah.
You can make it. Just gotta.
That's so funny. This is okay. This is
Yeah, you gotta feel bad just in case they like have to get. There's a cancellation on.
Yeah.
Because like almost everyone on death row is not guilty.
Yeah.
So, like he's been jonesing out, and then it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
sorry. They legalized weed, so he's good.
Yeah.
I'd probably look for work overseas. If I was
Exactly.
This is a far-fetched moral question. Speaking of the Dexter idea.
Yeah.
So this was, I forget how we came up with this. This is so ridiculous. But it's a good question. Okay, so if we learn to like swap consciousnesses,
Okay.
right? To fix pedophiles, what if you put a 50-year-old's consciousness just into kids'
Okay.
body,
Right.
and then the pedophile would get it out
Oh.
with an adult human being?
That's
who
the most fucked up thing I've
appears to
ever
be a
heard.
child.
I do not condone. What?
Okay, so are they taking like where are we getting the body though? Where are we getting
Yeah.
the child's body? That's
Like dead ones.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
so that becomes interesting, right? Because that's like CK's thing about like CK had a bit, and I know we're all
Oh,
not supposed to
God,
talk about
is
CK
it hurting?
anymore, but yeah, but remember he had a bit about like you would just donate his body to a thing.
Yeah. Do
Where it's
whatever
just
you
like,
want.
You could do whatever you want if you're one of the like if you just need to fuck someone's ear, you can go fuck his ear. If he's dead, he doesn't really care, you know. And then so I'm like. I'm mostly like because I just think once people are dead, they're dead. Like I don't like an indignity done to a body. Like I don't think that like that's bad, obviously, but it's not worse. It's not like it's not like we were gonna let him go for murder, but then he had committed an indignity to a body, and it's like whoa, like let's So why are we bothering with the
Because what if it helps? Like, what if because they can be a functional member of society, except they have that insane tick.
So you turn them into a dead child? And then do you put them back after?
No. The pedophile
Yeah.
gets to have their way with.
I think you'd
Oh,
be
with
better
the
off
dead
with like a robot.
There's
or
Oh,
an
that's even
AI.
grosser.
There's like a AI's consciousness in the child.
Oh my
What if you
god.
make it?
You guys are
make the
fucked
child.
up.
Yeah, like that.
It's just a
Okay, this
question
is-
of morality.
I
Okay.
think this is a much more realistic one. What if there was a government approved stash of child pornography? Right? Now this sounds ridiculous, but let's say, because I've met guys like this. When I was a social worker, I met guys like this, right? You're a person who is predisposed to this. You know that you're predisposed to this. You're because all of us are attracted to whatever we're attracted to, and you don't necessarily choose it. Right?
This is another CK bit that he got flack for. He did it on like SNL where he does like having sex with kids must be amazing to pedophiles because he's like, I love Mars bars, but if I went to jail forever for eating them, I would never touch one again.
Yeah.
So it's like, how good must it be for the risk reward factor?
Yeah. So you see, like, and I think we do have to start seeing these guys, and they're almost always guys, as humans, right? And I think that to view them in different categories. Like I worked with a guy once who he was caught with child pornography and did his time and all that kind of stuff. But it was interesting because he had kind of structured his life in such a way that like he was just never around kids. Like he had been abused as a child. He was predisposed in this way, and he didn't want to do it to anybody else. So he didn't make it. He didn't spread it, but he was caught with it. But he had structured his life that he only ever worked with like grown dudes, like who he was not attracted to. And I view him differently than somebody like there was that amateur comedian in Abbotsford that like he got caught with a bunch of kiddie porn, child pornography, and he was like an assistant principal at a junior high school. Like that guy's worse than the other guy, right? Like we all recognize why, right?
Yeah.
One guy is putting himself into a dangerous position. But what if there was like a voluntary, like you recognize that you have this predilection within yourself, you can apply to be like, please put please put me on a registry, and in exchange I get access to the government stash of child sex material, right?
that already exists.
That already exists, right? Nobody's making it, right? But you can,
and they're actually adults playing.
Sure, whatever. However, or it's all animated or whatever. But however we produce it, that like you have to give something up and that you apply and right. So automatically if you're like and I want to go volunteer at the YMCA or coach Little League, that somebody's like no, that comes up. But in exchange, if you have this stuff on your computer, then you're not going to get arrested for it. Like, I don't know. How do we feel about that one? Like, I think, because in my mind, I'm just like, these guys, like, if we're not just going to go around, like, bolting these guys in the head, right, then we got to do something, right?
Yeah.
So, is that a reasonable compromise? I think that way is much more likely. We could do that with existing technology.
The problem that arises then is just, like, where do we get the government material from? Like, where do we get the stuff from that? Like, is it just stuff that's hard drives that have already been seized? They're sitting in RCMP.
That would be well. And I wonder, probably you might have to like get the permission of because they have identified a lot of the people who are in the materials.
Oh yeah, that would be the problem, getting the permission of like the parents and the kids.
Well, if you got the permission that like. It's just a complicated
I guess if
world.
it's old enough and the victims are adults now and they can sign, they
potentially
approve of
they
the
might
project.
be able to, right?
I'm sure you can find a big enough.
Who in their right mind?
A group of victims who were like, this might help prevent what happened to me to happen to other kids. If we just give this up, you can use my locked up footage that already exists.
Because that's the sad thing. It's like this. There's so much of this stuff that already exists. There's actually a podcast, CBC podcast, Hunting Warhead. So basically for a period of time, the world's largest distributor of child sex material, which is actually they would prefer that we use that term than child pornography, because pornography implies like consent. And,
that's very interesting.
So, the world's largest database of child sex material was run by a Canadian guy, like out of Belleville, Ontario. So they have but there was a sting operation to take him down. It's fascinating. If you're ever doing a road trip to Saskatchewan, that's a great one to have on the drive you there and back. But but it's just it's called Hunting Warhead, but it's just really fascinating because there's so much of this material already out there, and so much more of it being produced all the time. And there's people that work for the RCMP and various, that their job is to be basically do what Don't Fuck with Cats did, only with child sex material, where they're looking at everything in the thing. Okay, so that outlet is from this country, is European. So now we can track it down to this television show is on in the background. We know that so there's people that do that for the RCMP and Interpol and in Australia. And anyway, so there's a huge trove of this stuff that already exists. And the worst, and possibly it's not the worst, I guess, but people are now signing up live. It's the web streaming is the new thing, which is really gross. I guess it's the thing in porn too, with girls and stuff like that. But that's becoming a thing too. So
oh my god,
it's a sick, sad world that we live in.
That is ridiculous.
But I mean, if for people that are aware that like if I act on this urge, then it's damaging to other people. Because that's the weird thing is like they talked about like psychological studies of guys that were predisposed to attraction to children, and they do have like a genetic profile, it seems. You know, like they have like they're generally like mid IQ levels, you know, like they're not generally not stupid, they're not stupid, you know.
Well, it's like most you can group most like I know that people hate when you say it, but it's like you can group most people, like most football players are similar guys. Like obviously there's outliers, but most comedians are similar in some way. Like most like
well, and it could be even just one like basically all of our DNA is a coin flip in some ways, right? So it's just like something switches from a heads to a tails, and it's like, you know, we don't know that yet. But and I guess I'm sensitive to, and in the same way that like I don't remember when I chose who I was going to be attracted to.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember making that decision.
Yeah.
So
yeah, me neither.
Probably when the Sears catalog came out.
Sears catalog arrived, and when I saw Ian Hannah-Mansing on the news.
You and Jim's grandmother found out.
It's like, I'm attracted to Sears underwear bottles and Guyanese Canadian CBC newscasters. That's my thing. I don't know what you're into.
Everyone's got their thing, you know?
It's no shame. It's no weirdness. That's part of the problem, man.
But yeah, I don't think any of us remember when it was like, oh, this is who.
Yeah, I just remember finding people attractive. Like, that's all I remember. I don't remember choosing who it was. I remember like it choosing you almost. Like you see them, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, there's a biological kind of reaction that, you know.
Yeah.
So like, and even beyond like the big obvious ones like gender and orientation and stuff like that, it's just like taller people or shorter people, or you know, are you into, you know, not that you want to start breaking down people into body parts, but all of us have a thing that we're into and not less into, right?
Totally. And it's always a combination of those things. Each person you meet, and you go, well, they have it's like making your player on NHL where you're like, you got 100 points.
You gotta even them out.
It's like, well, I can spare a little here to get a little more.
Him 6'11" and 500 pounds. And I can't give him 98 speed and 98 stick handling. That's
what does she have to be fast for?
Okay, he's just going to be a right winger that blocks himself in the slot. It's like a new age Brett Hull. That's what we're going for.
That's what we're looking for here.
Yeah, sometimes, and every once in a while you meet someone, you're like, I didn't even know I like that, but nice.
Yeah.
But nice.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, is like is the alchemy of attraction is much more complex than unless you're an old rich guy. All the chicks that they're into seem to look exactly the same. They all seem to be produced at the same factory.
Yeah.
It's like, I would like Melania Trump 2.0. Could I have that about 25 years younger, please?
Can I get the cheapest version of Melania, please? The one where you don't have $1 billion.
He's with Melania. He's leasing Melania.
It's like, how can I get one that doesn't look dead in the eyes?
That's how they come.
Absolutely not. What, do you want one that doesn't have a cocaine addiction too?
Just smearing the first lady.
Just give me a unicorn over here. Look at Mr. Moneybags over here. You're gonna have to go meet a real person. You know, that's always what impresses me. That's how I always decide. Like, if a rich person is, if I like, this is so terrible, but like, if a rich person is like a decent person or not, like if they're still with the same person that they were with
before they were rich.
Yeah, before they were rich, then I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, like nice move. Like I always think of Kurt Warner, right? Like Kurt Warner, like
good Christian.
Yeah, but also like, remember what she looked like when he was doing? Like, she had gray hair.
No, I've
you don't remember.
No, I don't remember.
12. Okay, so when Kurt Warner first became famous, like he was he was an Arena League guy, like, and he met this woman, and they got married, and like, but she already had a couple of kids, and one of her kids had like a lot of developmental issues and stuff like that, and like everyone was shocked because he was going to the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl that year. Like that
Arizona
was
against the Steelers?
No, that was the year with the Greatest Show on Turf. This is back when he first started with St. Louis. So he
good lord,
years
with,
ago. Were you like 3?
Dude, it was I would have been 11, I think, because that
Isaac
was when
Bruce
Marshall
and
Faulk.
Marshall
was that his
Faulk,
thousand season?
Yeah.
Him and McCaffrey, my boy.
Yeah. So, but it was the Greatest Show
hyped.
on Turf, and so they went to the Super Bowl that year. Yeah, they did win because they beat Tennessee. I think that was the year Steve McNair. Anyway,
Before I watched football, 2004 is when I started.
Anyway, like they always show clips of the quarterback's wife, and she was a pretty lady, but she had like gray hair, cut really, really short, and everybody was like kind of making fun of her that like he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback and his wife's not that hot.
Oh, man.
And then like over the course of time, if you see a picture of her now, like she's got the hair blown out and it's like, looks quite a bit different, but he's still with the same woman. And I just find that so fascinating how fickle we all are. And it's just like, they're like, well, he should upgrade. Like people would make jokes about like, he should totally upgrade. And it's like, but he blow out Trent Green blew out his knee before this game and lost his job. Like that's not.
Yeah. Also, what do you mean?
Like, it's like the Leo DiCaprio thing where it's like, once they turn 24, I think that's when he's like, trade him out for.
That's kind of gross.
It's weird.
It's a really
that's
gross
weird
thing for him to do.
Especially as he continues to age. Like that's fine when you are 24.
Yeah, exactly. But when he was 24, they were probably like 16.
Yeah.
Which is even grosser, but yeah, that does make like I think Matthew McConaughey's still with his first wife.
That's good.
So Bill Burr, yeah. Bill Burr's still with his first wife. So not everybody has to be, but I just think it's like it's a good like
it's like a character. It shows a character aspect.
Yeah. It's just like not that everyone not that Kevin Hart is a bad person because he's not married to still with his first wife, but it's just like I'm gonna watch you a little bit before I buy my kid your jersey.
I like when famous people are married to like not famous people. Like it's always successful people, but it's never like I like when it's not famous. Like it's
you're like who the fuck is that?
Some guy who like plays for the Houston Rockets is married to
kind of like George Clooney was with that very like political politician somewhere.
She was like a human rights lawyer like at The Hague.
Right.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like
way
damn,
cool.
that's cool.
Or Zach Ertz and his tight end for the Eagles, and his wife plays for the U.S. Women's National Team. Like she's a soccer player for the U.S. Women's
really?
Team.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like stuff like that's cool. It's like stop just dating Instagram
or even
models.
Sam Gagne's wife is a doctor in Edmonton.
Really?
Yeah, even though like she's probably not practicing right now because she just had her third kid,
and got traded.
And I feel bad for Sam. I really.
It was kind of nice having him back. Yeah.
I hope he comes back. Like I hope that I'd like to see him experience success as an Oiler. It kind of feels bad that they're about to take a playoff run, and it's like, bye-bye.
Yeah, but I was almost back. Yeah.
Thanks for everything.
Yeah, it's like you could have been the guy for like a couple of months there, man.
Yeah.
You still got that 8-point game puck?
Yeah. So just if the Oilers are about to make a playoff run, like all the comedians have saved enough money to get themselves through a few dry months.
March.
Yeah, that's I never even really thought about it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, April, May.
April, May.
Nice.
June, really?
If you get that far,
because in 2006 they went to the finals, right?
Yeah.
And, like it was bad.
It's late
No,
June.
2016. Didn't they also?
Well,
make
they went to the
second round.
The conference final.
Did they go to the Western Conference final?
Because they played San Jose to like Game 7.
Yeah. Even that was bad enough in terms of like no shows tonight. And I mean, like. Have you guys ever done comedy between periods?
No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, if you've never done that, then don't.
Oh,
man. Somebody will tell you that that's an experience that you have to have in order to be a real. No, don't. It sucks. Not. It's terrible.
Yeah, turns out you can only do good stuff and it still works out okay.
Oh, you don't have to punish yourself with dumb things.
You don't have to do horrible shows.
Yeah, you don't have to work with people who are going to steal money from you and rip you off or like
Yeah, you don't have to do any of that. You can just go.
You can just go to good shows.
Stuff.
Yeah. You can just go like do open like that open mics at places that you like, and where they laugh and they like comedy, like not
no more like Chicago Joes,
where they're mad at you for ruining their evening. Like,
yeah. They turned the game off.
But when we started, there was so many because we started around at the same time. I felt like there was so many people that were like, "Nope, you got to do the shittiest things ever if you're going to learn to be a proper comedian." And not that I'm like I know everything.
Skills to cut your teeth.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, I don't have to do that. You know, like I don't. You know, I don't have to fist fight that heckler.
You haven't fist fought a heckler?
Not yet.
Yeah. Well, and it's just and the other thing too is like, oh, you gotta yell that heckler down. You gotta take control back of the room. And it's just like, no, actually, now that I'm old enough, it's just like, and done it enough, I'm like, actually, no, you can do that because you're 5'8", you know, and weigh 120 pounds. Like, if I start yelling at everybody, the audience turns on me because I sound like their dad.
Yeah, it looks mean.
Yeah.
So I can't just tell that woman to shut up and call her the C word because everyone will hate me.
Yeah.
You can do that. Go right ahead.
Go right ahead.
For you.
I have to be nice to people.
It's true.
Yeah. Also, that seems to I don't know, maybe it's because of what I look like and all that, but I feel like it just works better when someone yells something mean just to be like, why did you say that?
Yeah. Like
they're just like, ah.
Well, most of the time they genuinely think that they're helping, right? Like that's a genuine thing. Like they think that, oh, I'm helping you, and so you can be like, so if you can just kind of ignore them, which is the best plan, and normally they'll stop. And if they're still too wrapped up in themselves that they can't do that, then you can be like, I've engaged with you, and now I'm going to move on because I can't, you know. And then normally they're stopped. But if it's like it's the late show at the Strip and that 40-year-old lady is like both drunk and mad and shopped all day and she needs it to be about her, then you have to be like, you obviously need this to be about you tonight. How can I help you out?
How can I help?
The only thing that's ever shut her up.
What can I do?
That's pretty good.
It's like, you seem to need something from us tonight.
Yeah.
How can we?
What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. What do you need to? What do you got going?
You working on a bit or something?
You got something new?
You want to work something out on stage?
Was it a good day? Was it a rough day? Is it? Woo! That's not really an answer to my question. That's just an exclamation.
That's an Albertan exclamation.
It's her birthday. It's her birthday.
That's the funniest thing.
I bet she feels great about how you're celebrating her birthday right now.
Yeah, young girls who are wasted, it's always their birthday. Yeah. If an older lady is wasted, it's someone else's birthday, and that girl's been having a rough week. She needed to blow off some steam, and she was like, it's Chantel's birthday. I'm getting fucking wasted at the comedy show.
Yeah.
Did something bad happen when hubby watched the Daytona 500 this last week? Is that what's going on?
That was on this weekend,
It
right?
was, yeah.
I was running. I ran for an hour and watched it, and it was...
I grew up watching stock car racing. All my dad's built and raced. My dad built and raced stock cars. My uncles did it too.
Watch it?
So, yeah, totally.
Did you enjoy it?
Well, I enjoyed hanging out with my dad and my sister who was in town. You know, so that was that. But yeah, it, like even to this day, I will turn on a race and watch the beginning of it, and then I will fall asleep.
Yeah, that's what I like about baseball. Well, I usually doze off by the third inning, and then you get back, you wake up, and you're like, oh, we're getting into the fucking. Here we go.
I don't feel like I've missed anything. You know, like it's just, they're just kind of chewing up laps. That's fine, and then. Yeah, and then you come back and you are like, oh, there's this many laps left. Okay. You can go do something else, make yourself some dinner, run some errands.
It's like podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn it on, go do what you gotta do.
It's at least as good as Joe Rogan, and way less Jordan Peterson, which
there is less Jordan Peterson. I mean, I don't know how much less Jordan Peterson there is at the Indy 500 than on Joe Rogan.
Well, I guess he's taking a hiatus now that he's got his Quaalude addiction or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to make fun of anyone who's an addict. I genuinely don't, and I want to have a lot of patience for Jordan Peterson, and I hope that he gets better on his all meat diet, But I'm also just like,
that's so crazy.
I'm just like, you're like. He's such a fucking idiot. He's just such a fucking idiot. And this is the thing. He goes on about he tries to go on about the Bible, which is the only thing that I know a lot about. And he knows nothing about it.
Oh, man.
Absolutely. Every single biblical thing he says is almost entirely bullshit. It's regurgitated stuff.
Do you have a example of anything? Or I
can't think of one right off the top of my head, but basically it's the kind of stuff that my kids grew up listening to this and they'd be like, that's really wrong. He basically has all of the Bible knowledge of like a camp kid. So it sort of breaks the whole, it's one of those things that it's like, wait a minute. I don't know if this is... Do you not know anything about anything? Because I thought you were smart until you started talking about the one thing that I know about, right? It's like, it's like sometimes when you have I don't know if you guys watch sports movies at all, but I always hate it when sports movies get numbers wrong. Because it seems so easy.
Yeah, it's basic stuff.
If you have a quarterback wearing number 37, I hate you right now. Why? How are you making a sports movie and no one told you the number that the quarterback should be wearing? But it just breaks the whole thing. I hate this movie now because this thing is so stupid. So that's kind of what it did for me with Jordan Peterson. It just smashed the whole thing where it's like, this is all completely dumb.
This is so ridiculous. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a very weird stance. Is he like a right wing or left wing? Because he seems...
I think he's kind of... by the end of it, it seemed to be he was just trying to get clicks. That's the weird thing is
just a provocateur.
Yeah. Is anyone sincere now? Is anyone sincerely right wing or left wing or anything anymore? I don't know.
I would say we've moved past this simplicity of I'm left wing or I'm right wing. It's a complex world out there.
Yeah, he would be he seemed like he had a lot of made his bones off not wanting to use they pronouns.
Yeah.
Well, sort of. Because that was the only thing that I ever heard about him was the original thing where they're like, oh, he doesn't want to use proper pronouns, but he actually just didn't want legislation on the use of pronouns in government documents.
Which is fine, except that what it turned into really quickly when he was talking to people was that's a reasonable stance that be because it's if you believe in smaller government, then government legislating anything is going to make it worse, right?
I get his point of just the legislation on language is not good. You don't have to put any specific pronoun for anyone in anything. But
there's the other thing where it's just what I didn't get is because it turned that turned into and now I have wisdom about everything and this is the way that the world should work. And when part of it is too, because people were asking him, so what if somebody in your class wanted to, and he'd be like, no, you can't force me to do anything. And at some point it's just don't be a dick.
That's kind of, as you were talking, I was like, it just sounds like you're just being a dick.
I get the legislation if you're a principled, governments should do less. I sort of get that government shouldn't define gender for anybody. None of us should have gender. If you want to go that way, none of us should have genders on our driver's licenses. Why do we have them? Anybody can look like anything. You can always do that sort of thing anyway. But simultaneously, it's just like, especially with the pronouns thing, it's like, why be a dick? Like, if somebody, you know, like, what is it costing you?
What is it costing you? Yeah.
You know, like, to not be, you know, like, it would make my life easier. It's the same as, like, you know, who's the guy that used to do stuff with Corolla that was like mad that he couldn't say the N-word, and it's just like what?
Yeah. Oh, and I can't figure out who, or think of who it was. Was it like Don Imus or something?
Yeah, not Imus, but it was like one of those type of guys. He did a bunch of stuff with Corolla. Corolla really likes him. But yeah, and he was all mad that he was just like, it's so ridiculous that you can't. Yeah, of course. He's like, it's so ridiculous that you can't say the N-word anymore. And it's just like, well, why do you need to say the N-word?
Yeah, what
what
are you trying to say the N-word for?
Yeah.
What bit are you doing?
Yeah, like why?
That hinges on the N-word.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what is your line?
And the thing is, like, you can say it, but the consequences you're not gonna like.
Yeah,
you'll probably lose your job, but no one's gonna cover your mouth. Like you can say it, but you're gonna get it because other people also have freedom of speech.
Well, and that's the deal too. That people think that freedom of speech means consequence-free speech.
Yeah, I can say anything.
Yeah, no, that's not the way it works.
It's consequence-free from the government.
Yeah,
it's not.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
it's not
all it is.
illegal to say the N-word.
Yeah, but you're probably gonna lose your job.
Yeah,
like when those guys started marching with the tiki torches and stuff. The white supremacists. Then a bunch of them lost their jobs, and they're like, freedom of speech, whatever. And their jobs were like, we don't agree, so no, you're gone.
And you just defended Hobby Lobby and the bakers in Indiana to be able to like not sell stuff to gay people. So by the same extension of that law, that I can choose not to hire a white supremacist. Like,
that's not fair.
Well, guess what? You know, like if it's good for the goose, it's a weird. It's a weird world that we live in where all of us seem to want one set of rules for ourselves and then another set of rules for everybody else. And it's just like that's never been the way that the world has worked or ought to work.
No.
You know, like,
I also think this is a hot take. I think America needs to be more countries.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Canada should probably be too.
Yeah, I think Canada should too. America just much more so though.
Yeah.
Just because Canada population-wise and just GDP and like geographically it doesn't really make sense. Mm-hmm. But it's like America like has the Gulf of Mexico that they can get out through. They've got the two coasts. It's like pretty easily divisible like politically kind of where they stand from like New York across the top down to California.
Well, you could just hive off the West Coast, right? Like Washington, Oregon, California, and they'd probably be good. Yeah. You know, like that. Like California could be fine on its own anyway. But
Texas in the South and all that has the Gulf of Mexico right there. The South can be its own thing.
Yeah, well, Texas has wanted to be its own country for 100 years.
Yeah, and then North Carolina, up or South Carolina up to New York.
Yeah,
It just makes more sense, like geopolitically.
Yeah, well, and there comes a point where it's just like maybe that's everybody just needs to chill out. Or maybe that's the way that you guys can all just chill out.
The USSR right now.
Yeah.
And like obviously the USSR went about it way wrong because Turkey's still fucked like Yugoslavia, and they're like, no, you don't get to create your own borders. We'll decide. Yeah, you're all just Slavic over together.
Yeah, no, and the other thing is just that the history isn't as long when you start divvying up, like this is the weird thing. Like in 1919, when basically the leaders of the Western countries, the countries that technically won World War I, you know, just divvied up the entire world, including Africa and the Middle East. Yeah, you know. Like, insane. They were sticking their noses into rivalries and fights that have been going back for thousands of years, right? Like there's intertribal warfare in the Arab states that have been going on for literally thousands of years. That it's just like, we're gonna just figure out what's going on. And it's like, no, that was a really bad idea. You know,
we'll pick a side. We'll tell you what's up.
Yeah. These guys are in charge now.
Israel, Palestine.
Yeah, well, that was
Palestine.
That was like 1948, which was its own messy nonsense. But yeah, so because that was post World War II, they, you know, obviously, you know, like so the same group of anti-Semites who were kind of okay with murdering the Jews, and there were a lot of them in Canada and the United States that were okay with Nazism. were now like, well, what about Zionism? Like, let's just give them their own state. That'll be fine. And it's like, wait a minute. 2 minutes ago, you were like, it was basically a lot of that just came from the same anti-Semitic spirit. But we've never really reckoned with our Nazi past in Canada nor the U.S.
No, it's crazy. Operation Paperclip is like the most wild thing. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Like, it's the most insane, like, not even covered up, just publicly open thing that, like, everyone's like, wow, but...
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, Nazis in Argentina. And it's like, you didn't have to go to Argentina to look for Nazis. Like, you try the space program,
Yep.
I found that out recently.
Yeah, that was really heavily influenced by Nazis.
Have you seen that, like, fencing scar thing?
No.
So Nazis used to get these, like, dueling scars. I forget where the fuck I heard this. But they would do, like, dueling, but they would use, like, actual, like
rapiers and stuff like that, like
just stuff with like an edge on it. So you would actually like get cut.
Oh wow!
And then when they'd get cut on the face, they would pack like horsehair into the wounds so that they would scar bigger. So that's why all those Nazis had those like gnarly scars on their faces and stuff. And so if you go to like NASA and look through, and you can see all these guys with gnarly scars on their face, and you're like Nazi, 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 Nazi.
Yeah. Well, we went to Vegas in the spring, and we went to the Atomic Energy Museum because they used to do all the tests out in the desert outside Vegas, right? And that was crazy because many Nazis.
Everyone's last name ends in bird.
Yeah, and also like it was crazy how they were like if you go through the museum, in their minds it was like, the bomb is what won us the Cold War. Like in their minds, like, and it's just like crazy the amount of like the bombs just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they were like, then they tried to use, they had a program that they called Operation Plowshares that was basically like, we can use nuclear weaponry for things other than weapons. They were like, let's try some nuclear mining, see how that goes.
Oh my god.
The answer is badly. Like
what if we just try and blow the ground up? And then we'll pick up the pieces and see if any of them are shiny.
Yeah. That was essentially, but they were just trying to but so much money got funneled into that program. Yeah. And once you funnel that much money into a program, you got to be like, well, this was worth our while.
We need results.
But so that's one of the things that they had to do. But in their minds, in the minds of the museum, like the way they wrote the story is like, and Russia collapsed, the Soviet Union collapsed because we had the bomb. And I'm like, well, they also had the bomb. And now there's just like abandoned bombs.
Now everybody has the bomb.
Yeah, exactly.
Quit giving people the bomb.
And the worst of the people would have the bombs that no one has. They're just like
nobody got the bombs.
Yeah.
Some people have the bombs. No way to move the bombs.
They're just somewhere.
Yeah, they're just somewhere.
Turkey's got some bombs. They ain't got planes big enough to carry them.
Yeah, Pakistan and India both have bombs. North Korea's got bombs.
North Korea does have bombs. Yeah. Also,
theirs is made out of aluminum, though.
The planes. Apparently, the planes are the big problem. That's what I read in an article.
To deliver them.
Well, the U.S. had a whole bunch of bombs in Turkey, and when it kicked off in Turkey, they were like, when it looked like Turkey was going to turn on President Trump, they were like, "Fuck, all our shit's there," and they were saying there was too much to carry out by plane. It was just like and it would be like, you couldn't covertly do it.
We've had planes crash with nuclear weapons on them before, right? And it's always like a little bit. Is this gonna go? Like it's not a fun.
Everyone's like, how long do we wait?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, allegedly because they pulled out of Turkey. That was like the big thing when Trump pulled like troops out of Turkey. But apparently, because they didn't have the stuff to take everything out, but they pulled all the troops out. They took all the stuff that they could, and now there's just a bunch of like leftover U.S. Army shit just in Turkey that like ISIS and the Turkish government are fighting for.
Awesome. Two groups of people that I really want with surplus materials.
Yes.
Yeah. But the whole defense was like, let them have the nukes. They can't get them anywhere. Like,
Fuck.
Oh man, but that's the craziest thing to me about the U.S. is like they're having this fight over whether or not they can afford single-payer health care. Meanwhile, which would cost billions and billions of dollars, but spending every year trillions of dollars on their military. Like when their military is like bigger than the next 7 global.
Yeah.
Like even if you were just say, hey, you know what we're not gonna do in 2021? Buy military shit. We're just gonna like
hiatus.
Everybody's gonna get paid, maintain what you got, but we're not getting anything new and we're not hiring anybody new. We're just gonna trim it down, see what happens. We're probably still gonna be way ahead of everybody else. Probably we'll fix a bunch of stuff that we don't have. That's like
we're not even gonna tell anyone that we're doing this. We're not gonna tell people that we're not buying shit. We're still gonna be appearing to buy shit.
Yeah. But it's all
You don't know what we have anyways.
Yeah, it's all just gonna be maintenance, you know?
Yeah.
But instead it's just like, well, we can't afford single payer health care. We bought to buy like 70,000 new Jeeps.
So
no,
crazy.
why? Why do we have to do that? Why like
It's like that old internet that like the price of a bomb and like what it like compares to. It's like one single bomb with like the airplane to fly it and the fuel is like, well, that would cover like Flint's water crisis. Also, on top of that, like, you know, build like the like fucking solar facilities to power like whatever. And you're like, this is insane. I mean, it's just like known knowledge that everyone has, and then we're like, who do we tell to do it?
Yeah. Well, it's like even the whole war on drugs. Like there was enough money spent in the war on drugs that like for so much less money they could have just gone and purchased every coca producing field in Colombia. Like and just been like, hey, how much are they giving you for cocaine? We'll give you twice that for bananas. We're just going to make bananas crazy ass expensive, and you guys are going to grow us the best bananas ever. You know, like that's like. And what's weird is that all the people that were pushing the war on drugs are these like pure capitalists, the free hand of the market, and it's like, isn't that a better free hand of the market?
Yeah.
Like, we'll give you more money than the drug dealers are giving you for this.
Yeah.
You know? Like then the drug dealers are like, well, we have to pay this much more now, and it's like eventually that's how you fought the Soviet Union. Was like, why didn't you get into a wage war with the Colombian cartels?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I guess the theory
because they wanted cocaine.
No,
because all of the guys making decisions love cocaine. Turns out,
and also, how are you going to throw a majority of the African American population in prison if you can't catch them with crack?
That's exactly right.
You know?
Yeah. What are you going to plant on them?
They'd already given them the crack. They're not going to go take that back too, Dan. Come on.
What's scary is like there's so many conspiracy theories that like when we were kids, people were like, "Oh, that's insane," and now we're just like, "Yeah, that happened."
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So like, what's gonna happen? In
what's our version
30,
of that?
40 years, you know, beyond Epstein, you know, like it's just
even just the Snowden stuff, man. That's another. I've listened to very select Rogan interviews. The Snowden one was one of them.
Oh, I'm sure that was fascinating.
And like just the stuff that he's saying about 9/11, you're like, so we did know?
Yeah.
Like he's just like, yeah.
Like so, Snowden said that 9/11 they knew about 9/11 beforehand, or
yeah. He was
like,
just
who knew? Like, did Bush know?
So
or
basically, the way that I
officials in the
understood,
CIA. Or?
Yeah. So basically, the way that he framed it and that I understood what he said, like the whole idea behind, basically, is the CIA, the FBI, and the White House all knew that like there was a big terrorist attack being plotted on America, and if they had collaborated, they would have been able to stop it. But they all wanted to be the department that got it.
Right.
So they didn't stop it. And then after that, they were like, oh, now we have to make open communication, which is what they used as justification to wiretap everything.
Oh, okay. Because I never quite bought the 9/11 was an inside job, but I did buy the, like, we fucked it up. And after the fact, we're going to cover up the fact that we fucked it up and we ought to have known.
I also think they like knew about the terror attack and they were trying to be like, well, let's let it happen with minimal damage so we have a reason to go in there, because there's all the other stuff about like Halliburton already had like Iraq divided up amongst like different companies that like different oil companies that already divided up like sections of Iran and Iraq like before 9/11 even happened. Wow. And like all the sketchy stuff that what's his name, the vice president there, Dick Cheney. All of the stuff that Dick Cheney was up to is like real shady, that kind of stuff, and it's all like pre 9/11 in the Middle East. Yeah. Plus, they kind of knew that it was happening, so they like let it slide, and then they also used that as an excuse to start wiretapping everything. So it's like they had this overarching plan of being like, let's let him do a little some that's big enough to let us go through with all our plans, but not that bad that it will cripple us. Yeah. So like they knew some was coming, but they didn't know what, but they didn't really take any action to prevent it.
Yeah, I can buy that. That's What's so weird is I remember when it happened, people were like, who would have ever guessed that somebody would fly a passenger plane into a building? And I'm like, I read Tom Clancy's Dead of Honor back in 1996, and the final scene in that is a Japanese pilot flying his empty passenger jet into the Capitol building. So the idea that no one had ever thought of this before is a little bit ridiculous.
Do you not remember kamikazes?
Yeah.
In World War II, when they would crash planes into buildings full of people to murder them?
Yeah. And ships. Yeah, like this is not... So I always found that part really weird, that it's like, who would have guessed that? Now, I mean, you can be like, we should have figured it out before they got pilots' licenses and all of that stuff. But the reality is, like, you can do a lot of stuff with a simulation back. Like they do a lot of training on those. Yeah. So, but they're saying even that Malaysia flight that disappeared over the Indian Ocean, they're saying now that was like a suicide, murder. Suicide.
Yeah, I read that too.
The pilot took it down. Which is the second one in this decade, right? Because there was the one in Europe where he crashed into the mountains that they're pretty positive that was suicide.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he had like that flight path like programmed into his simulator at home, I think. Yeah. Something crazy like that.
The Malaysian one or the
Malaysian one?
Malaysian one.
Yeah. So it's points pretty heavily towards that.
I think that they just released that conclusion. They wouldn't have said that unless they're covering something else up. But it's sort of it's sort of like, but what is more terrifying than that, really? Like,
oh my God, yeah.
That is just so much more simpler.
What are you covering up?
Yeah, there's just so much it's just so much more simpler and believable than like a massive conspiracy.
That's the funny thing about some conspiracies is like, isn't it easier? Like your thing sounds way less plausible than like a guy just went psycho. He was practicing at home and he wanted to do like a mass murder.
Yeah. Like, but it makes you worried every time you get out. Like, are you doing okay? Like,
You're an Uber driver. Like, you're having a good night. I hope. Like,
how's it going?
Yeah. You're fine.
Not just making small talk.
Yeah, Bella, let's talk.
Yeah, this is a real check-in.
Before I fly to Winnipeg.
I'd actually like to talk to the pilot. Can I at least see the motherfucker? Like,
are you okay? Like, do you also want to get to Winnipeg?
Yeah.
So you got family in Winnipeg? You gonna see someone while you're there?
Oh man.
No, not a lot of family around. Any friends? Close friends?
You don't nobody that you're mad at between here and Winnipeg,
How's your relationship with yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez, I don't know how. I'm not afraid of flying, but I am afraid of people. So
yeah, totally.
The science behind aviation does not frighten me one bit, but the idea that a guy forgot a screw too close to the engine, real possible.
Flying is shockingly safe, and we have a ridiculous. It's weird to think about how I find this fascinating sometimes. Think about how good we've gotten at aviation in such a short period of time, versus why are our cars still as ridiculously inefficient as they are? You know, like if we had progressed at the same rate as airplane technology, you should be able to like drive to Toronto on a tank of gas. Like you should be able to.
Yeah, well, it's because airplanes are for the rich and cars are for the poor.
Yeah, I guess. Well, and oil companies, I think, like oil companies clamp pretty hard down in the electric car and things like that. Too, you know? Like
in the 80s.
And that's 100 years old. Like they've been like there was electric cars 100 years ago.
Probably that would have been the easiest other solution is to like, well, we have other things that run on giant electric motors. Like, why not cars?
The problem is still producing it. So in rural area, like if you had a tractor, because that's what they were still thinking was as farm machinery, much less than individual transportation, right? So if you had a tractor, if you like, and you just ran out of fuel in the middle of your field, like how do you generate the electricity to then charge your battery to charge the, you know, whereas like gasoline was an amazing innovation in that it's like this is energy that I can carry in my hand that will run this for hours, right? Like I can carry it, pour it in, you know, which was pretty amazing. But I mean, the biggest crazy thing that in terms of electric cars is why can't we have a standardized battery? Like that changes the game. We're not like until we have a standardized battery, electric cars just aren't going to work. Right?
What do you mean?
Because
isn't it the lithium ion battery? Isn't that kind of what
they're all
just
different
doing?
shapes and sizes, right?
Oh.
So this is how the electric car could work. We already have an infrastructure all across the country. You should be able to drive your car to. So if we're all on a comedy road trip, right? We stop for gas in Red Deer. We're going to Medicine Hat. We're going to do shows in Medicine Hat. So when you get to Red Deer, you should be able to pull into a gas station, pull out your battery, pop it into their charger, pull out their already charged battery, pop it into your vehicle like a propane tank, like a AA battery, like any other battery that we've got, and you know, pay your $80-$100, whatever we decide that we're going to pay for it, you know, and away you go, right? Like we already have an infrastructure for that. And if the oil companies wanted to be energy companies, they could easily switch to that. You know, it wouldn't be that hard for all the car companies to get together and be like, this is the size of battery we're going to have. I honestly just don't think
they have an engineer who's come up with that idea yet.
I'm sure that somebody has thought about that.
That sounds great. Well, their whole thing now, because they're trying to do that, Petrocan just got a huge grant to turn every single gas station add an electric charging station to every Petrocan across the whole country.
It's not completely simple because the initial outlay for those batteries is very expensive, right? Like, so part of the issue would be like, if you're just constantly turning over batteries, the initial cost for those is more expensive than it is for a gasoline engine. But then all of the gas station, like we still got to stop to pee. We still got to buy snacks, or you know, we still got to buy shitty road coffee. You know, like all of those things are still going to exist no matter how far our cars can go, right? Yeah. There's always going to be a limit on it. So why can't we just like pull a battery, pull my old nobody owns a battery, nobody owns. You know, you don't expect to have gasoline permanently, right? Like you use it, so it's just like
it's the energy. You're buying the energy inside of the battery.
Yeah, you're buying the energy inside of the battery, and also you're paying maintenance on making sure the battery works and stuff like that. But it's like, you know, you pop it in and it's got like as many, you know, however many you expect it to have. It's got like you're buying 500 kilometers worth of whatever, you know, like 500 kilometers, 600 kilometers.
Or just whatever the range on yours particular vehicle would be.
Yeah, exactly. It would change based on
your fuel efficiency of your car.
Yeah, and you could even have it like if you got an electric truck, then maybe a pickup truck has a bigger, heavier battery than like a compact car does or something like that. But like
whatever, Ford general size, there's 3 different kinds of gasoline plus diesel.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's 3. What's weird is like the car companies always say like, oh, we couldn't possibly have a standardized battery, but it's like, but my Walkman has a standardized battery. My iPhone.
All other types of batteries are standardized.
It's like, why this shouldn't be that hard, and then we can just operate from the same infrastructure that we're already using. You know, and then because that's the biggest issue is like if the battery was already charging there, right? Because even if Petrocan does that, you still got to plug it in for like an hour, 45 minutes, however long. Like even for the Teslas, which are at kind of the top of the thing for that, you know, like you still got to wait there for 45 minutes as opposed to like cha-chunk, dunk, cha-chunk, dunk.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah,
you go. Like that should be
Yeah.
you know, that should be like, I don't know why that doesn't seem complicated to me. I think we could do that with technology that already
that's
exists.
a smart idea that people haven't thought of.
I'm pretty sure that somebody's thought of that.
I don't know. I think about that all the time, like, because so many times, like, innovation also relies so heavily on, like, the ability to innovate. So it's like people who have these great ideas can't get them to the people who can make them happen sometimes. It's like right place, right time is so necessary. This is one that I have. Here's my gene. I was watching the SpaceX documentary on Disney Plus, and they were talking about how, like, the hard part of getting to Mars is because everything's so heavy, and then you have to get it from Earth to Mars. You have to get it out of the atmosphere and then get all that to fuel it and like carry all this stuff. I was like, why don't you just make like a filling station on the moon and you send stuff up in small batches to the moon, and then you go to the moon where there's no atmosphere and it's a shorter distance. You load the motherfucker up, and then you take the shortest, as soon as we pass by Mars, take the shortest path. Moon to Mars. It shortens the distance, plus you use less fuel getting out of an atmosphere.
Yeah, isn't that the thing with space travel, that you burn everything up like getting out? Like if we're ever gonna have like interplanet, it's always got to start at a space station, right? Like isn't that the plan for the International Space Station, that eventually you'll be able to
is that what it was?
I don't know, maybe, but it makes sense, you know?
Because it's like just go load up at the moon, because they've now got rockets that can land. Like SpaceX made rockets that can land again. Like that was the big thing. So it's like, well, now that you can do it, just go land on the moon and then take one big one up there, fuel it all up.
Yeah. And jump to Mars.
Head over.
Start terraforming it.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's go.
I'm down. I'm down. I mean, I don't have any skills that would make me valuable on Mars.
Me neither.
It's always like, hey, would you go? Yeah, but they're probably not going to need too many stand-ups for the first batch.
No. No.
I don't know that they're going to start booking cruise guys.
Yeah, wait till.
Like they can get podcasts still. Like they have YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, if there's no internet, nobody's going.
They'll be able to communicate wirelessly with Earth. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, I should probably get going.
Oh, yeah, I guess this has been a long
It's been a very long... Hey, if you're still with us, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Bye. Enjoy the rest of your lives.
Job.